1. In the early days of running my small business, I faced a string of unfortunate encounters with people who took advantage of my kindness. During a particularly difficult period, I had one after another start a job, then after a few days or weeks ask to borrow money, then quickly do a disappearing act or simply go back to the job they came from, with a bonus from my pocket. It's a tactic that can be used in my trade as there are few very skilled workers around, so it's easy for them to hop from job to job. The money I lost on these people is not a huge amount, but is the time spent training, finding homes and trying to build on something, and it strains finances. I promised myself I wouldn't let it happen again, but it very quickly did. On this particular day, I happened to be in a fantastically good mood, unusual for a dour Scotsman. I had just proposed to my girlfriend in the park opposite our little factory, and when returning back to work, our new guy hit me for $300 USD. I had just taken him on as a sales assistant the week prior, and commissioned a tailor's suit, and made him a damn fine pair of handmade shoes. A fair bit of time was spent on training, as we had the grand opening of our shoe store fast approaching, so reluctantly handed over the cash along with his first paycheck. The next day he didn't turn up, gone from the new room I booked and gone from my phone. Not wanting to spoil the memory of that day, I soon devised a plan for a sly revenge. With a willing friend, we created a new fake job posting on the same website that I found him and tailored it to his background, ethnicity, and aspirations. The job offer was way too enticing to resist with plenty of benefits. It took around 2 weeks before he applied for the position. We arranged a meeting at an outdoor cafe with my friend being the interviewer. I managed to observe the interview from directly above by positioning myself on a skywalk nearby. My friend, posing as a representative from the UN, offered him his dream job. As the conversation progressed, his passport was requested for photocopying, and he got up and walked away with it. I then approached the table and calmly sat down in front of him. I believe I might have ordered a coffee with a Sean Connery accent, and calmly said nothing else. He said nothing, I said nothing, and finally I took a sip of the coffee and handed over a plastic bag. Inside was a peculiar outfit consisting of a colorful My Little Pony vest, boxer shorts, and child flip-flops. I set all this up just to retrieve the suit, waistcoat, and shoes, a pair I made. He took his time changing into the absurd attire in the toilets. It did need a bit of encouragement from me, with the reminder that I knew his new address from the UN application form. Once changed, I discreetly snapped a photo and watched him navigate through the bustling town center in ill-fitting flops, all while attracting curious glances from passers-by. I know this story may not resonate with everyone due to being the employer. I did not demand the money back because I knew most likely he could not afford it anyway. He received his passport again, and I got to live out being James Bond for a day. 2. During the early noughties, I was a chief engineer equivalent on a Royal Navy patrol boat as a warrant officer too. The hierarchy of the boat was the captain was a lieutenant commander, the executive officer, known as XO, a senior lieutenant, various other officers such as a navigator and gunnery, but the marine and weapon heads of the department were senior rates, enlisted. At this point, I'd been serving around 16 years and had a lot of experience in engineering as a whole. Instruction of trainees, firefighting, and damage control, and how to get things done. The XO had been serving maybe 6 years, and considered himself to be an expert in everybody else's field. Every piece of work generated had to pass his desk for him to pick it apart and change it in some way. He insisted on making an evening broadcast on the tannoy every day, in which he would recap the day's activities and lay out the next. This became known as ums and ahs for Mars bars, as the crew of around 40 used to sweepstake behind his back on how much waffling he would do with the winner getting a Mars bar donated by the canteen. In short, he was self-important, vain, and a bully. Every day on a warship there is some kind of mandated activity. Fire exercise or man overboard drill, machinery drills, steering failure, etc., etc. XO was in charge of the firefighting and damage control. I was the advisor. After every drill, we'd have a hot debrief, in which we'd find self-fault to improve the process. It was important that everybody heard the problems to assist with the solution. After one drill, when it was my turn to critique, I laid out some errors others had committed, then addressed the failings of the XO, i.e. lack of communication, improper procedure, rushed action, and poor timing of support activity. He blew an absolute fuse and hauled me into his cabin for an arse-chewing because I'd inappropriately called him out on his failings and criticized him in front of juniors. I've had my arse chewed by better than him for actual misdeeds, but it rankled as what I'd done as common practice for this sort of activity. The whole boat knew I'd been chewed out, but I was stoic about it. We had a general mucking about with his marking of our paperwork by putting in errors on purpose to see if he could find them, and marking his and sending them to the captain. Eventually, about 6 months later, the boat was to be sold to a foreign navy, so we had to prepare. XO was determined to make it as seamless as possible, and all computer passwords had to be put to a generic one for handover. XO was the person who wrote my personnel reports for promotion, etc. He drafted the captain's comments for him to sign, and also there was a matrix of expected and achieved scores for a variety of topics. If your expected score was a B, but achieved was C, there had to be reasoning in the text. The day before the handover, I was duty officer and happened to find my report on a computer with a generic login, as it was due for me to read and sign it the next day before moving to my next role. It was as bad as it was possible to be. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, picking out every spelling error, falsehood, and mismatch in expected and achieved scores. The next day, I was summoned for a meeting to read it, and I refused to sign it until I had a meeting with the captain. I went through line by line, pointing out every error, etc., and asked for redress. The skipper was fairly horrified at the report, and it was changed to my satisfaction. The XO was carpeted by the captain, in a rather vocal display, albeit behind closed doors, but enough heard it. Especially me, as I knew to be adjacent to his cabin so I could gloat. Side note to the story, possibly better. The boat went to Spain for a decommissioning trip. XO invited himself to the Seaman Branch drinking session ashore, and thought they were all drinking tequila slammers. Turns out only his shot glass had tequila in it, and he was poured into a taxi after 45 minutes, and had to be carried over the gangway back on board, where he subsequently threw up all over his cabin. 3. I have a small cleaning business, and one of the places I clean often is the headquarters for an insurance company. I'll just start off with sharing that I've cleaned daycares, nursing homes, doctors' offices, and none of them are as bad as the banks and office bathrooms I have cleaned. I was always of the impression that people handling large amounts of money were less animalistic and would have better bathroom etiquette. Alas, I have seen things not for the weak in these places. Aside from my recent endeavors, cleaning literal explosive diarrhea off a wall, floor, and entire toilet, don't even know how an ass can do something like this, but apparently it can. There is one consistent battle I am fighting. A war has started between me and a stranger I do not know at this company. I must warn, if you have gotten this far, what I'm about to say is not for a weak stomach. Every day for the past 2 months, there is a urinal in one of the men's bathrooms that is never flushed. I have made every attempt to persuade this individual in doing so. The worst of it is, my work week there ends on Thursday, and I do not return until Sunday. So, when this urinal is left and I return, the contents inside of it ferment and grow a thick, disgusting, ungodly form, carrying a scent I wouldn't wish upon anyone to know. A few things I've tried before this point are attempts to play nice little casual parting gifts, like snacks or trinkets by the vanity next to the exit, buying fancier soaps and air fresheners for the bathroom, making toilet paper and paper towel sculptures to add to the allure of please be kind to your housekeeper, and I'll make your experience as pretty as a bathroom can be. I've tried making sure I'm cleaning that urinal the best out of any toilet in the room, It's been the most pristine toilet you've ever laid eyes on, many a time. But every time I return to the bathroom, a wonderful present awaits me. The last few weeks, I've worked up the courage to, as politely and professionally as I could manage, sourcing ChatGPT and asking others how to professionally say, "Please stop leaving your fucking fermented piss in the bathroom over the weekend and just flush the damn toilet." It is the cleanest and most sanitary toilet in this building, and it is not hard. It stinks and makes me actually gag and almost vomit. In the end, I made a very professional-looking and sounding sign, and even added some graphics to entice some more motivation to no longer assault me every Monday, and placed it between the two in the bathroom. It didn't work. I gave it many a time and chance. I then started to understand we are fighting, and this is on purpose, so I am going to bring the heat. More and more every day as he brought the gift of nasal annihilation, I brought the gift of reminder. I began moving the sign closer and closer to the urinal, and even that was pushing professionalism. In my opinion, it is obvious I am the only cleaner in the building, that it is my doing. Yesterday was the last straw. I got some chunks on my arm while cleaning it, despite gloves, and I finally vomited and I realized what had happened. I doused my arm in disinfectant spray, washed 4 times, and then sanitized. I felt as though I was touched by the devil himself, and so today I sent it. I just couldn't keep my composure any longer. I saw it sitting in the toilet once more, and I left it. Strong smell and all. Took the polite sign off the wall above it, and taped it completely over the urinal. The soap and paper towels needed a refill, and I left them. And honestly, I hope he gets as sick as I did. I didn't lose my job. I emailed my client about it being a potential risk and biohazard, and he seemed to take it seriously, too seriously. In the most professional jargon I could, I said that I think this is intentional. He messaged me on Facebook instead of sending an email, saying something that sounded like we should set up the guy, have me come in around 1 p.m. and clean, and if I see the mess, he can check the cameras and see who's gone into the bathrooms. I found this odd and had pause worrying it may be unethical, despite some opinion about it potentially being more private than sending a whole email to everyone and drawing everyone's attention to the issue. I emailed him in response and said once again in fancy talk that I think it might be wise to just send an email so as not to violate anyone's privacy. And maybe if that didn't work, we could try something else. He emailed back saying it was a misunderstanding and seemed panicked about me quitting. I assured him I was not. Seems like it ended well, for now. 4. In high school, I was on the track team, and one day before practice started, both the boys and girls teams were lined up in the school hall for attendance. It was a massive school, and the team had over 100 kids from 4 grades. The coaches weren't ready to start roll call, so I was just talking to my girlfriend and her friend. They were sitting against the wall on the floor, and I was standing in front of them. Out of nowhere, my male friend John decided to quietly get all the guys' attention and sneak up to me to pants me, pull my pants down to my ankles. Luckily, he only got shorts and not boxers. And also, it was my girlfriend in front of me, right at waist level, so nothing to really be embarrassed about. But I wasn't going to take it. I let it look like I was over it and get back in line. Once practice started, we all went to our separate training groups. Mine was with 3 other guys, and our workout started with a long run around the school campus, aka unsupervised. Before we went outside, I pulled my group into the locker room and told them the plan. They all saw what happened, so they were 100% on board. Also, John was on the distance team, and we were sprinters. So while we were all friends, there was an unspoken rivalry. While in the locker room, we found John's regular clothes that he had changed out of. We took those and his car keys. We found a bucket and filled it with water, then added the clothes and sat it outside. It was the dead of winter, so they froze over. Once slightly solid, I put the car key just poking out of the ice water, effectively making a 20-pound ice block keychain. This wasn't enough for my PettyRevenge, so we also went back inside to grab 2 full water bottles each, then started out the front doors of the school to start our workout. One thing to note, no one ran with water bottles, let alone one in each hand. We hydrated after the workouts usually. So it should have been something John noticed when all 4 of us walked past him, 15 minutes late for our workout, holding water bottles. I remember how perfect it was that we passed him literally while in the middle of pranking him and he was clueless. Instead of doing our long run, we found John's car and proceeded to carefully add layers of ice to the doors. This took the full 20 minutes that our run was supposed to be, and somehow not a single person spotted us. The cherry on top was putting the still freezing ice key fob on the hood. After the deed was done, we finished the rest of practice and got dressed to leave. On the way out, we see the small crowd growing and hear yelling. John was scratching away at the ice on the driver door in his sweaty shorts, swearing at everyone watching who were all in tears laughing. My group was the last to join the crowd, and we all played dumb. At some point, one of the other distance runners made a joke that pushed John over the edge, and John accused the guy of doing it. They got a little heated with some choice words that you wouldn't expect friends to exchange. It killed the mood, and everyone ended up helping him get the car unfrozen. Everyone except us, that is. We casually went to our cars and went home. To my knowledge, no one ever found out it was us or the reason behind it. I can't confirm it, but I'm pretty sure John still thinks it was the guy he fought with. The 4 of us never spoke of it again, as the revenge mission was accomplished to perfection. 5. This is mundane compared to my usual problems in this area, but it's interesting. The gas station nearby was bought by a new person a few years ago, but he's terribly mean to everyone. He's polite to everyone's face, but he has a lot of lewd remarks about people behind their backs, particularly people who are not of the same culture, I guess. He yells at his wife. He's also been very mean to 2 of the employees there, 2 people who are friends of mine. One of them was pregnant, and he made her work past her schedule constantly. Didn't give her time off, called her in on her days off, asked if she had a babysitter lined up before the kid was even born, and overworked her into hospitalization. The other employee, a close friend of mine, is on the older side, and manager guy overworked him into hospitalization too, plus gave him COVID. Well, manager guy got 2 quarter machines put in the store later on. You know those machines where you drop a quarter in it and try to time it right, knocking down the other quarters and winning them? I'm not bad at those. I'd also recently gotten into a coin kick, and I've learned a lot about mint errors and rare quarters. Manager guy hoards his quarters from those machines in buckets, but he doesn't go through the tax process with them, instead just pocketing them. He thinks he's slick, because he also snatches all the silver quarters out of the machine before anyone else can win them. But I've gotten quarters out of that machine that were worth plenty more than silver quarters. I've gotten countless mint errors, lots of them from 2021 and 2022, and I've found 3 West Point quarters so far. Alone they're not worth a fortune, but I've been accumulating them for the past year. My mother just ordered me some coin holders, and now I've got a whole collection of coins to sell online in a side business. I'm not bad at just winning the machine normally, too, getting that big drop-off of quarters. Every time I found a valuable quarter in the machine, I turned around, held it up in the light, and made sure manager guy could see me doing it before I smiled and slipped it into my bra, separating it from the rest. I've done this so many times, he definitely knows that I'm finding things he doesn't know to look for. And he doesn't like me playing his machine now. It's satisfying to rub his nose in it a little, knowing he's a money grubber and he doesn't care about literally anything else. He bit my head off for using winning quarters to buy a vape from him too. He said he doesn't take quarters because it's too many. It was like $14, which I counted out for him beforehand. Boo-hoo. I've got at least $100 worth of mint errors, about $60 worth of Westports, and a few questionable finds that might be big money coins. I'm almost ready to move out of the area, and I have a plan of how to get him into some legal trouble once I'm gone from there. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 301. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do poke the like button. And if you'd like to get the videos a little bit early, then you can support me through my Patreon, which is linked in the description, as is the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. You can also make donations during streams and videos like this one, and unlike the guy in the last story, I do declare it on tax, and it helps me out. Okay. Let's see, I don't think there's any other business, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: what is a TV show or a film franchise that everybody loved, or, well, many people loved, but you came to it years later? And this is something I love to do. This has happened a few times, but I'll name one specifically. Supernatural. By the time I came to that, I was aware it existed, but I'd never watched it. But it wasn't until, I won't dwell on it too much, but it was after my mother had passed away. I needed something to distract me, and I just figured, okay, I'll give this a chance. It sounds interesting, I'll give this a chance. And so I had 5 years worth of episodes, and I watched them all very quickly over like a 2-week period. And I've been a fan ever since. So if that's ever happened to you, why don't you let me know in a comment below? And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.